So when I got on the Sandpoint City Council, I brought with me and I would add it, I had a little box. In fact, I meant to grab it today, but I don't know. I still have this box somewhere. And in it, I had note cards. And on each note card, I wrote something that I wanted to get done. A policy change, we want to eliminate parking requirements. We want to make it easier to have historic buildings. We want to, I don't know, a lot of them were about parking requirements. I was quite obsessed about that. But, we want to actually have parks within near neighborhoods. We want to do whatever the things were, right? And it was filled with probably about 40 of these different cards, probably 10 of them that I started with, and I kept adding to them as I saw things. And as opportunities came up, right, on council, I would go through my cards and like as we're doing budget process or as we're doing a review of something or talking about code again, and I would just doing a comprehensive plan review or whatever, and I'd try to figure out how to make some of these things happen, right, as we got there. And the point wasn't you don't have to literally have these cards. I did because I was a very weird 25-year-old, 24-year-old when I got in council and precocious and had the time to do this. And so I had all my cards there and I'd lay them all out and then I'd remove ones where I was like, oh, I was wrong about that. That wasn't a good idea. I was like, oh, no, it shouldn't be a 4-lane limit. It should be a 3-lane limit. And really only 2 lanes we should allow in town. And, those kind of things we revised. But look for the opportunities that are coming to you. Where are the moments where there's a policy recommendation that ties to the work that you're doing as a committee? So we're seeing these plans come forward to us in this way, and here's the challenge we're seeing about them. Or we think it should be easier to do blank when we look at the code. And so we only see plans that people are always doing this and actually be better if they did this, but clearly the code forces them to do this. Can we change this, right? I'm trying to think of, I can come up with some concrete examples of these things too, but they're usually things like being able to build to street or have less parking requirements or, which is a really good example, right? If you want to deal with parking requirements in your town, it's great to say, look at all this parking we're building. And we had to approve all these plans with all this parking, and yet it's totally unnecessary. Nobody's using it, which is almost always true. Can we do something about this? Or we're not seeing a lot of permits right now for houses coming in. We don't see housing requirements, and we're seeing there's actually all these extra requirements on housing to take place here. What can we do to actually allow this to make it happen? So I'd really try to link it to your work when I make policy recommendations, because it will then make it more powerful and persuasive because it's tied to an expertise that you have and your job as a planning and zoning commissioner. So those are my 2 thoughts: is be ready and have a list of sort of the kind of things you want to do, and then look for which one of those things that you'd like to do match up with the opportunities. Because maybe not the dirty secret, the secret of like public service in a lot of ways is there is so much work to be done. Richard knows his committee won't do any of it, right? But there's so much work to be done that we can actually do to drive these things forward. And it almost doesn't matter where you start. What's important is that you do start and that you're making progress and pushing it forward. And so I would look for something that where you're most pushing through an open door. That would be my advice. And then I would say those private meetings are like a superpower. Because they are private sessions for the council to listen to you. They're without the council having the political pressure of having a bunch of people in front of them. If you're finding resistance in those meetings, I would be thinking about how could you get some friends to do some public push pressure too, to complement that. But in general, that's really, really valuable time and a real big opportunity to have real conversations with them. And the other thing I would say, to come back to what we talked about earlier in this conversation, is I wouldn't just give them advice, I would ask questions. I would say, how are you looking at this? What are your big concerns? And then I'd offer policy remedies that meet some of their concerns, right? So I would say, what are you thinking about housing in our community? What are you thinking about this? Oh, you think affordable housing is a problem too? Well, we got together and we have some ideas about how to make housing, or how we could change the zoning code to make housing more affordable in our community. And then I'd bring those forward, right? So get them to tell you what the problem is, and then you can bring the solutions to that problem. And there almost always are good, strong towns progress that can be tied to that.